And from the moment I saw her, I was like, whoa, like she's very badass. And then I felt intimidated of like, I have to play her. Like it sounds really cheesy, but I feel like my whole life was preparing me for it. Hearing V talk to her, struggle with what to do, I started crying.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a very awesome episode of Behind the Voice. I'm joined by Minji Chang, who played Songbird in Cyberpunk 2077. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining.
Hi everyone, and thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. And, Cyberpunk has gone through phases, and it's such a big game at this point, and people have been like, it's been, what, a month now? Or a little bit over a month now since since the DLC came out. What are your feelings right now? You're mentioning that this is like you're new to the video game world. What are your feelings right now, knowing that the game is out, people are liking it, and there are all kinds of stuff going around? What is the feeling?
There's a lot of feelings that have been coming in waves. When it first came out, I think there's just so much anticipation coming up to it. I recorded most of it last year, finished recording early this year. So there's all these like, timelines of like, I was so, I'm like the impatient kid that I was like, is it out yet? Is it out yet? Is it done yet? And it took a minute, they're really working hard, and I respect the heck out of CDPR for doing that. They really took their time on purpose. And I think the product is speaking for itself in terms of why they chose to do that. So I really respect that. I'm very like craft driven. So that it's just been like a huge like breath of relief of like, oh, it's here, it's finally out. And then to see people play it and react positively has been really touching and kind of surreal, because I've said this in other conversations where I was just recording in a studio. It's just me with a microphone, an audio engineer in the other room, and like Zoom. So I didn't get to like, it's just crazy to see it come to life the way it has.
Yeah, I mean it is crazy, and I love the fact that your character is such an important part of this game. Like there is so much in this game, and I like that it took me by surprise that I never expected this is how it's gonna go, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like insane. So like what do you feel like your character, and it's Asian American character, it being such a big part in a game, I take you as the lead character in this game, even though the player is kind of the lead, but like you are the main focus in my opinion. So what does that feel for you?
There's multiple layers to that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that that's exciting to you. I think that's like a really important layer to it in terms of the Asian American component, because I the people that have known me, or like my friends, that anyone who knows me, I've been really active and vocal in terms of Asian representation in media for a really long time. So that's kind of been a huge parallel of my career, besides being an actor, besides being an artist, and now I'm a writer director. A huge, it's honestly since high school, it's been a huge part of like my life's mission to share our stories, and like stories coming from our point of view, or even something as subtle and nuanced as like a voice, performance. I keep, I'm like a purist when it comes to art. Like it comes from a source that's different from anybody else. If you have a Korean American character that's voiced by someone who's not Korean American, it just, I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's different. And I really felt so glad that there was an honesty that I could bring to the character, because I really resonated with a lot of her layers and her personality traits, and her uh, even like her flaws. I just related a lot to it. So that was really cool. And in terms of, like you said, like you're surprised at like what a big character I am. Like you and me both. Like truly, like I didn't know the breadth or depth of my character at all when I took the role. I genuinely, that could be a total flub on my side of like just not reading fine print, but I truly didn't know if I was going in to do like 5 lines or 5,000. I had no
Yeah.
idea. And I kind of had to take the role not knowing any of that. So it was a surprise to me too, is what I'm saying.
Hey, that's great. I know like video game projects, you have no idea, as I mentioned, you have no idea what's gonna happen, how long, how everything. Do you remember your first day going to the studio? Were you nervous on that day? Like what was going through at that time on the first day?
The first day, truthfully, I was nervous, but because I didn't know how big of a deal, I didn't know what game it was. My first day, I show up, I still don't know what game it is. I don't know
Oh,
anything. So, like, again, I had to take the role. It's like Project Teacup, and like that's all I get. And I auditioned for Teacup. Did I book Teacup? And then once I accept Teacup, it was just a yes or no. And so yeah, because of that, I don't think the nervousness was that high. I just knew that I'm entering a new universe. I've never done a video game before. I've never done like a character. Like I do a lot of commercial work, or that's what I've been booked for a lot. So in that way, I was nervous, but I think it was to my benefit to not know what a big deal this
yeah.
was, because I think if I did, I think I would have crapped my pants, and then it would just been it would have been really bad. But I remember a lot of detail from that day, and just discovering it was a discovery process to like understand what this game is. Because even when they told me it didn't register, because again, I'm not in the gaming world, I
Hmm.
was like, oh, that sounds kind of familiar. But I was really preoccupied because I was also going in production for a short film I was making. So I wasn't, yeah, I wasn't all there. I think that's the best way to put it. And that's why I think it makes for a really good story. It was just not, things didn't land, I think, even the way that CDPR wanted it to land, because I didn't get it. I was like, what? Like, oh, cool. And my main thing I was worried about was scheduling. I was like, do I have to come here every day? Like, instead of freaking out, be like, oh my gosh. I was like, so what's the scheduling like? Like, I was just, and because I didn't know, I was trying to gauge, like, am I a big character? Like, do I have to come in all the days you asked me to come? Like, what's the deal? Like, I was being such a, I feel bad. I feel a little bad that I wasn't more excited. I got excited eventually when it clicked.
That's okay. I mean, yeah, it's to be honest, when somebody steps into the video game world and it's so hard to like obviously they have no idea what's out there and but when they get to
Mm,
know it, it's like when they get to realize and get to see the scope of it, it's insane to see, especially with Cyberpunk, it's insane to see how big it is and how many
yeah.
actors work in it. Yet I know for your process it was you had to work with nobody. You had to work
Mhm.
inside a booth and don't bounce off with anybody. You just had some lines maybe fed to you. How was that like? Because you have never done voice work, kind of. You've always done on camera, but so how was that whole experience like to just record lines and that's it? Like, how was that?
It's actually interesting because this was my first character, but I've done lots and lots of commercials. So even in the commercial world, I feel like, a lot of times I'm getting hired to be me, but there is a character within that. They have specifications of, you're going to be the trusted friend, you're the neighbor in this one. And this one, you're the professional who's the expert on cloud computing, whatever it is. And in that way, I feel like that muscle has been well exercised in terms of kind of getting into a specific headspace. This one was like a many steps deeper because she's a fully dimensional character. There's so many different storylines, the volume of lines, the agenda of each line. Every time we step into the booth, we're at a different part of the game. We have to like recenter of like, okay, where are we? What's the physical like proximity of me to the other character I'm talking to? What's going to happen next? Where, like this crazy equation that we're like jumping into, which I loved. I thought it was so fun. It was like a cool acting challenge to just jump in, be ready to like for anything. It could be the day that I'm really sad and introspective, or this day could be the day I'm like screaming and like,
Yeah.
running away in terror, like whatever. And it was never boring. I'll tell you. It was just a cool, as an actor, it's like, it's really fun. But she was tired. She was a little tired.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing to see how there's so much, so many lines, so many things that happens in this game, story wise, and yet so many other lines that you say when a player is like playing the game, and so there's so much. But when I first saw Songbird, I was like, okay, she is apparently like kind of like a projection. I'm like, okay, I think that's what it is. But when I first saw her, like physically, like when she's present, I love the design. Like I love the look. I was like, wow, this is insane. Did you remember like your first reaction when you saw like the whole like kind of design of the first look? Maybe you saw on YouTube or wherever. What was
Mhm,
your reaction like? Because she's half mostly machine, a lot of
mhm.
chrome. What was your reaction?
See, that's another term I've been learning. She's chromed out. I didn't know that before this. Um, so that's actually one of the funny stories of what my first day when I learned who my character was. And again, in my callback audition, they gave me little tidbits to give me parts of her personality, telling me she's ultra smart, she's can be cocky at times, she has a temper, like whatever. They gave me a little bits and pieces when I was just auditioning. But the day that I first recorded, again, when they're like, "You're in Cyberpunk," and I was like, "Dope," and it went over my head. They were like, "Do you want to see what she looks like? Do you want to see Songbird?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" I got really, really excited because now, like let's get into this. And they showed me at the time was not a complete, image of her, and it was kind of glitch. I just remember clearly not a finished product, but I got to see. And from the moment I saw her, I was like, whoa, like she is very badass. And then I felt intimidated of like, I have to play her. Like, okay, like it kind of set me for a loop, but it was really, really cool. That was the first step. The first day is when I first got to see her, but an incomplete version. And then when I saw the final version, oh my God, my brain melted. I was like, this is so cool. Like her hardware is insane.
Yeah.
I I just yeah, it was like the design. And I love I have such respect for artists, and someone had to design all that and spend all that time engineering development. It's so cool to me. I
Yeah.
was like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love the design too, and you even cosplayed her.
Yes.
How was like it must be a great crazy process cosplaying for me. I'm like, how do people do that? What was that like cosplaying her, preparing for this like for Halloween, I believe it was.
Well, I Halloween's one of my favorite like holidays, period. I love the holidays. I'm very festive. I like to celebrate anything I can. I think life is, I've been through a lot of different things in my life, and it's all taught me that life is short, and when you have a chance to be joyful and celebrate, do it. But Halloween, as an actor and as like, a theater nerd, I just anything where I can dress up in a character is super fun for me. So it's not abnormal for me to go all out, but this year was so special because I am now a character in this like mega huge hit game. And she's so badass. I fell in love with her in the recording process, learning who she is, learning her story. And so yeah, I was actually right after the game came out, I actually came down with COVID for the
Oh
first
yeah.
time. So I
Wow.
was sick for like, which is why we couldn't talk earlier.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, so I was like on this creative idea of like, oh, I have like a month to, because it came out the end of September. I was like, I have a month before Halloween. So right before I got sick, I had started putting out feelers to friends because I have so many friends in the industry, in the film and entertainment industry. I have friends who are costume designers, seamstresses, and I was like, who do you know? The one that I'm closest to, she lives in New York. I love you, Vera. But I asked her, do you have any LA local colleagues that you recommend? Because I really want to make this costume. And so it was like a kind of like a celebratory gift to myself to like get it built from the images that I had from the action figure, the statue that exists. I
Yeah.
built it mainly off of that because I was like, that seems to be her iconic outfit if that's the one they're going to turn into this figurine. But yeah, it was a mix of that. And then another friend, Leanne, who is an actress. She's very talented and she's an incredible cosplayer. Like, I think there's a difference between being like an actor nerd and being a cosplayer. Like, that's a
Yeah.
whole other. And I'm curious, so if you what you can tell me, like if I did a good job, because that just again feels intimidating of like you can't disrespect that level of commitment that
Oh yeah.
cosplayers go to. So she's into cosplay and she saw the figurine and I was like, she's also a hairstylist. And I asked her, can you help me with this wig? And at the time I wasn't planning to do the chrome. Oh, on Twitter, I didn't even share the chrome. I didn't share the back. I just realized that. But on my Instagram, I did. She built the back of that head, like, and she had the best. She like when I like commissioned her to do it. She's like, "Thank you for letting me do this," and I was like, "Thank you. What are you talking about? Like, thank me." It was so cool. So I loved that. It became this collaborative thing. And Tisa, the seamstress, the tailor, costume designer, she helped build the outfit and like, painting the pants and constructing the top, and, over like a cyborg outfit so that it just, we try to do it as true to form as we could within a reasonable budget. But it was like a present to myself to kind of commemorate it. And so it was really cool.
Wow,
And
it all came together so well, and you talked about like working with everybody else and making sure that it looks good. It looked really good, and I loved it. It's like I was like, this is great. Giving
they,
like cosplaying as a character that you played in a game like this for Halloween. It felt like it was all kind of planned from the very get go. Like Cyberpunk came out. It's a month from Halloween, like before Halloween, and it's like perfect.
yeah,
Not exactly perfect, but like this good amount of time to like this is the way the time to
yeah.
cosplay as her. Like, wow, that's crazy. I love that.
There were some obstacles because like trying to get this together while I had basically a 2 week dead week of being sick. And then also I'm
Yeah.
producing a film and we're going to be premiering our film at a film festival. So there's a lot of craziness going on at the same time. But that's why when you have a vision, like I'm a big believer in that, you have to follow through and you have to do
Yeah.
whatever it takes to like make it come. So I'm grateful because the women that I collaborated with were so flexible. They're so supportive. We're just like texting things back and forth. They're measuring me, like all this crazy stuff. And that's all the detail that I think is like the fun of life.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You just mentioned about directing. What has that been like? When was the time, or when did you realize like maybe directing is going to be fun? Let's try that out.
Yeah. Um, it's always been in the back of my mind. I'm a Leo moon, so I can't like I can be a little bit bossy. The euphemism for that is leader, you know. No, but I like I'm really inspired by other great artists, and when they have the courage and kind of the wherewithal and the determination to make their vision come to life, something that I really admire. I didn't consider myself like qualified to do it, but being around other artists and seeing their courage and their rising to the occasion, it's a big daunting task, and watching that and bearing witness to that from an independent level to like a larger scale, it's super inspiring, and it makes you really question like, could I do that too? Why
Yeah.
not like give it a shot? And again, I've been through a lot in my life to just constantly tell me, if not now, like when I give it a shot, like you have no guarantee for tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen. The world's shut down for 3 years. You know, we're so you know, like nothing's guaranteed. So that's why I was like, let's just give it a shot. I have insanely talented and supported friends. So yeah, last year was my first endeavor and I love directing. It is one of the hardest things. Well, I was directing it and executive producing this short film that just kept growing in its scale because I didn't go small. Like it was like go big or go home. Like I went big. And but that's why I felt like I needed to kind of put on the line in order to commit and follow through. Otherwise I would have flinched and not done it. But it was one of the hardest 6 months of my life. And then the production was 3 days. And even the post-production, all of that. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I'm so in love with it and I want to do it again. That's when you know you're onto something good. Like
Yeah.
you're like depleted and you've lost weight and you're like stressed out and sleep deprived and you're like, let's do it again. You feel that
Well,
about podcasting? I mean, I'm sure it's a lot. I'm a podcaster too, so I kind of know.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot of those because I'm also balancing with the job. So I'm like, oh
Mm,
gosh, and some days I'm like, I didn't prepare for it. I have to run through and
yeah,
like prepare and all that stuff, and then realize that okay, so it's already 12 p.m. I mean a.m. I'm like, oh great, I have to sleep now. So yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy. I know that feeling, but yeah, I feel like directing is so much more. It's scary for me. I mean, it
Mhm.
must be a lot of stuff that you have to figure out, a lot of stuff that you have to do, a lot of controlling. I don't even know 90% of directing, but like it's just I feel like it's such a challenge to get like to do it, to do your first movie and stuff like that, and you're enjoying it so much. I'm super happy for you, but I'm curious: is you can ever since Cyberpunk, is there a possibility that you would make like a kind of like a short movie of your character?
I would love that. Here, the thing is, I think what's so funny about this whole experience is that, again, gaming and in general, like sci-fi and fantasy and post-apocalypse, it's not my genre.
Hmm.
Like, truthfully, it's not something I've gravitated towards. I've watched a good amount of it. I've watched all the biggest hits and so I'm familiar with it, but it's not what I reach for first. So it's been I'm the kind of person like just because I don't like it now doesn't mean I won't like it.
Yeah.
And it's really funny to me how you can have like something be a gateway. Like the fact that I got this role has made me a lot more intrigued about the world. There's still things that like, I've watched the game. It's super violent. I'm
Yeah.
I'm just not her. Like I don't enjoy that. I've seen tons of violent movies in my time, and I do think there's place for violence, especially when it's, necessary for the story. But I kind of lean more on like I go for, I guess, emotional violence. I don't know. Like that
Yeah.
might be worse to some people, right? Like not physically harming people, but I'm Korean American. I've been through a lot of stuff. So that's the stuff that I'm more familiar with, or like, and more wholesome stuff and comedy. But I'd be down. Like, I feel like it'd be the challenge of a lifetime to try to like create something from Songbird. And my producer hat is like, how do we do all the special effects and how do we do all the costuming? That's
Yeah.
like that's so much. You need so many resources for that, but it could be a cool challenge. I'm not like against it, but I'm like, I don't know. It's really daunting.
Yeah, there's a lot of sci-fi in it, which I'm
Yeah.
like, that's too much. And like, just to
Maybe for
see.
me, I'm like, I'm grown enough to be like, it's not my strong suit, so it might not be the right person for this.
Well, I mean, regardless, I think you played such a great character in the game. It was really cool. There's so many moments that I just like didn't expect will be there, like in the sense of like how emotional it was, how crazy it was. So, how was your preparation like to play this character? Because you got to know as you recorded, you got to know the story as you went through. How
Mhm.
this did things change as you were recording? Did you how was your like how was everything in terms of preparing for this character as you kept on going?
I truthfully, I didn't know how much it would help me to get super into the cyberpunk world. As I was doing the sessions, um, I cared most about the director telling me, am I in the right zone? Am I giving you what you need? And again, because it was such a chaotic time in my life, I was worried that I'm not doing her justice, or do I need to like play the whole game, or, and I watched some stuff on YouTube. But it seemed like from the feedback I was getting from the other creators, because it was the director and other people from CDPR, they seemed really happy with it. Um, so at that point, it seemed like I knew enough about the world. I knew enough about the vibe, and what I needed to care the most about was like landing emotionally, like
Hmm.
giving Songbird the life that she deserves or that she needs to play. Um, and in that way, it sounds really cheesy, but I feel like my whole life was preparing me for it. Like the
Yeah.
the emotions that she feels, again, even that I don't have any understanding of, like I've never played the game. I'm not a huge cyberpunk enthusiast, of course, like I'm not into sci-fi really. I'm into tech. Like I'm from the Bay Area. Like I've grown up with tech. I feel like it's in my DNA. So I have curiosity, familiarity with tech, and I do question philosophically, the dangers of it and what we're compromising at every turn. Like I'm really into that. So I felt like I had the ingredients, and then I just needed to trust that I'm going to give it 110%. I will be receptive if the director tells me like this is either like too dramatic or too comedic or whatever. Like that's on him to give me that feedback. So that preparation, it was just life. It sounds so like right, but
Yeah.
I feel like all the drama I've been through, the heartache I've been through, the things I've been angry about, I could channel that really easily when it came to her,
Mm.
and I just had to kind of translate it.
Yeah, I think I can understand that because I feel like I feel like people in Asia have that. They have like things that happens in their life with family and
Well,
stuff. It's like yeah, we have great childhood. But like
no. I want to
I'm
hear
just
it.
kidding.
I want to know your thoughts.
I mean, there's just all those things that happen in life anyway, and especially with parents in Asia and stuff like that. So it's just, and I feel like that I felt like that came so naturally. I felt like everything that I saw, I immediately felt it and was like, oh gosh, like I need to help her. Like I I, as a player, wanted to help her. I'm like, and there were choices to not help. I'm like, wow, I would not do that. Like, obviously, I was like so confused. Like, why are you giving me this choice? Obviously, I'm not gonna pick it. So,
Well, there's people who didn't choose that, you know.
yeah, I've seen them on YouTube. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? And there's half the comments saying like, what are you doing? I'm like, yep, I don't know what this guy's doing. But yeah, it's the story and of Songbird is like been crazy, getting having done like kind of experimented and losing her memories and betrayals and all that stuff. She's hurting from the inside. When you got to know gradually about how her story is and how her past is, what were your thoughts on that? Like, it's such a crazy story and it's such a crazy past she had to go through.
Yeah. It was definitely heavy to understand that. And again, I related a lot to it. I related a lot to having, you know, like at one point in life having kind of all the ambition and all the bright-eyedness in the world, and maybe, the naivete and sometimes the arrogance and entitlement, whatever, all the things that come with youth. That felt really familiar to me. And I've been hurt a lot, like I also have a podcast, and I've shared, that's what I like to talk about. I like to talk about mental health, about racism, about identity, about um sexism, about dating culture, mental, like all these different elements that make a person, and all the different traumas and wounds that we have, and all the triumphs that we have, and what those triumphs like create an expectation and a hope, and then you get blindsided, or you just get disappointed and disillusioned. Like those are all such relatable experiences. I think every person goes through that in some variety. So yeah, it hurt a lot to learn that about Songbird, but then that gave me, I guess, a really deep sense of purpose that I could give that to her or to the players. I was like, I know that life really well. I know what that rage feels like. I know what that like dog will to survive. Like no matter what happens, I will, get through this, no matter what I have to do, right? For better or worse. You can't always dictate the outcome of that, right?
Yeah.
And so it came from a really truthful place, and the fact that it's landing so deeply with the players is it's I don't know how to describe it. I really feel really touched. And people have told me, I've gotten messages and tweets saying like from grown men, they're like, I've been gaming for 40 years or like what, for decades, and I've never cried because of a character until you. That's insane,
Yeah.
that's a really profound thing. Um, so yeah, that just gives me validation that like, I just want to make the thing and put it out there and let the audience decide. But it's really nice to hear that. I don't want to make, well, I'm not necessarily here to make people cry. I framed it actually to friends of mine. I was like, I want to help the world. I want to let them cry. Um, because crying, I'm a big believer, crying is and I'm a bio nerd. Crying can be a really healthy thing. It is a way to be cathartic and like release a lot of emotion. So I don't know. I was not my expectation of Songbird's gonna be, the heartbreaker in any way, but learning about her along the way, I was like, oh, this is heavy. This is gonna be a lot for
Yeah.
me and for the person playing potentially.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, just didn't expect that this is how the story is going to be. I didn't expect how this is how it's going to be for her past. I was like, I thought like, okay, we're going to know about her past, but there were scenes later on where we got to know more about, we actually got to see, we got to really feel about her. And there were so many lines, like absolutely heartbreaking lines. I'm like, oh my God, please, we got to help her. So like, it's so, what was it like? Must be super hard to like even record those lines. Like, was that a kind of a challenge, or like how was it for you to just have those lines recorded?
I don't know how it'll sound weird. It was strangely easy for me. Like the heaviest stuff, the stuff I struggled with was kind of the more casual conversation, because there's layers to her story, and
Yeah.
I'm, building trust with V and on this mission and trying to establish that actually, in terms of the gymnastics I have to do in my head to deliver a certain casualness with like enough urgency, those that actually I felt a little bit more like, oh, I gotta nail this. When it came to the harder stuff, what some people might categorize as like the more difficult parts, for me was like, I don't know if that's weird, but it was really easy. It felt the most truthful and the most simple and the most, it's just heartbreak. It's layered heartbreak. There's
Mm.
different kinds of heartbreak, to be, again, disenchanted, or to feel hopeless, or to feel betrayed, or to feel guilty and shameful. Like all
Yeah.
those are different nuances. But again, I've familiar with those feelings. And so when I got to channel that, and I can't take all the credit for that. I was able to have it easy for me to do that because of the environment, even though it's like, a booth and I'm by myself. But even in that, like, it can be challenging to like have the right imagination to understand the setting that I'm in, what am I doing physically. And the director Pierce, I love Pierce to the moon and back because Pierce, like, genuinely, he was always a guide for me in terms of keeping me in a good zone of, this is where we need to be emotionally, and he gave me free reign. And that's that partnership that you get with your collaborators, whether it's the director or your co-stars or whoever. They create that bubble in which you can be really, really vulnerable and just exist and put your heart on a platter as much as you can, and hope that it does something good. And that's also because of them, like Pierce and the other team. There are other people kind of supervising it, and they were just quiet and respectful and gentle with me while I'm like going through these like really tough moments. And I'm so grateful for that. Like, that's like an artist's dream, to have that kind of care,
Yeah.
and like feel that safe.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's lovely to hear that. You had like the support, and it was. I know, like it is weird to say, but it was easier to deliver those things because you can channel those emotions and channel those struggles,
Yeah.
and that's why it just felt. That's why I just felt like it just went through. Like I could feel everything. Like it was like, and because there's a moment, and I even though it's like a very sad kind of line, but I love that line, and I actually wrote it down. It was like, I'll keep this moment as this memory, just one, back home, a friend on my side, before it all goes dark. For one last moment, I'll know I wasn't alone. And that just went through me. I was like, oh my god. And I wanted a moment of like, I wish I could hug the character, and there it was, hug Songbird. I was like,
Mm.
yes. So so I felt that was a great moment. I was like, this
Yeah.
is, I felt not even just in video games and story. I feel like that in general, if you take it out and put it to everywhere, I think it
Yeah.
would make people give hope. I feel like it just be like, yeah, it's a good thing. I feel like that's a great thing to just show it to everybody. I feel like it's not just for video game peeps or for
Oh,
story purposes. So that's what I felt like from that, and I just, that moment for me was the most memorable for me.
oh, thank you. That means so much. Yeah, that there were those lines where I'm like, I felt it felt natural to mean that 100%. It's interesting in this format, in this kind of a genre, to have something so tender.
Hmm.
And so I was stoked. I was so happy that there could be, that was a revelation to me. Truthfully, like, you know, I think my relationship with the gaming world, I was wary to take the role because there are people in my life, including like a really painful ex-boyfriend and things like that, where my exposure to gaming world and like the kind of vibe that I got from it, I didn't particularly feel like it drawn to it, or it didn't feel safe to me. It didn't feel safe as a woman. It didn't feel safe as like, um, and so all those things, that's kind of like and I had a happy childhood with video games because that's all like Tetris and Super Mario and Zelda and Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
Fully aging myself right now, but as like games got more sophisticated and more in depth, and like in my college and early adulthood life, those memories kind of made me scared, to be honest. Like, it made me scared to take the role because I was like, what kind of game is it going to be? Accent, I don't know what the game is. And
Yeah.
um I've seen some scary stuff, and I've heard some really terrible things from different people's mouths, and like the stereotype that's kind of out there sometimes about the gaming universe. at that my more ignorant, that's all the exposure I had. I was worried about like what kind of character am I going to be hired to play and am I going to feel good about that? Um and that sucks, but that's the truth. So when I got to do this, I just don't know how. I'm really a big believer in like energy and manifestation and putting intentions out there. I wanted to work with excellent artists. I want to work with like the best of the best because it's not necessarily people who are out to like make the biggest box office hit or whatever. These are people who really care about the art, either of storytelling, about characters, about design, about sound, about light, about emotion. I'm obsessed with that. So when I got to play this and I realized what it was and getting to discover how multi-dimensional she is, how layered she is, how much care they put into her story, it it genuinely gave me a lot of really good feelings that I was not expecting. And I'm really grateful for that because it was not what I was genuinely apprehensive and cautious and kind of like worried and scared at the beginning. And I'm just blown away that that's not what happened because it could have been a million other things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get where like kind of your mindset was initially, because yeah, it's like the gaming world, half of it is, I said like, oh, it's a waste of time, and half of it, when people actually go to see how the whole process and things go work, there's always this divide, like that is divided between like, okay, that we have heard some kind of like not so positive stuff around it in terms of working environment and stuff like that. And but I'm
Mhm.
really happy that you didn't have that. I'm really happy that CD Projekt Red is able to work in such a good way that makes you feel safe when you're playing a role and whatnot. And there's so many studios out there who are also trying to create an environment so that, like, okay, it's much easier for anybody, any actor, to say yes to a role like that. And
Yeah.
it's amazing to see how video games, since the memories that you have, since
Yeah.
Zelda and Super Mario Brothers, which still exists. It's so crazy.
I know.
And till now, like, how storytelling in games have changed like
Yeah.
dramatically. And so I am the one who loves dramatic moments. Like, I am all for it, because when I have those moments, I feel like I'm so much more connected to the character. I'm
Mhm.
like present. I want to see it. I want to feel everything. And the moment I get all that, I'm more into the story. I'm more into the character and whoever is with that character. So that is what felt with those lines, with those moments. I was like, that what made me blow. Like, I was blown away with everything that I saw in that. I was like, wow, this is. I'm glad I'm playing this. I was like, this is
Good. That's
crazy.
a great thing. I mean, genuinely, it's just such a crazy time that, there's so many things competing for our attention, right? And
Yeah,
there's so many easy ways to waste time. And again, the older I get every day and all the different things that keep happening in our universe, like it's always reminding me to have to treat it preciously,
yeah,
and I'm also currently, it's funny, it's ironic, I'm actively working on being lazy because I have a hard time resting and I have a hard time like unplugging. So I'm actively working on being bored, which is ironic, weird thing. But in the other case, I have a tendency to try to like maximize like kind of getting the most out of each moment and being
yeah,
mindful of that. Like, am I using it in a good way, either to invest in like a relationship or in my own development or in my something that really brings me joy. So that makes me happy. I like that, if you're going to play a game, you want to go on a journey and feel different things and think about that. That's what I think is so crazy about this game and this expansion and our character. Like, everybody makes you think so deeply
yeah,
and feel, not only just feel deeply, but really question a lot of things and ponder.
yeah.
I, that's great art.
I love the fact that, because with every game nowadays, there are YouTube channels out there, or people put out like a full story, kind of like 4 or 5 hours of, oh, here's all the cutscenes that you can see and understand everything. You don't even have to play the game and all that stuff. And I tend to see them sometimes, and I see comments because I want to see what people are thinking about. And I love the fact that people have different, like, kind of like thoughts, and everybody is like, there's some options where a player can choose to support Songbird or to not support Songbird, and everybody's like obviously when I support Songbird, this was my I love the people like who are sharing their moments in the comments, and there's like so like long paragraphs and all that stuff. I'm like, people really connected with Songbird and her
Yeah.
story, and I cannot believe as I said, like it took me off guard in some ways to see like a story went in that way. And because it was so crazy, I was like, I need to help her, I need to save her, I just have to do it. So and it was so crazy to me, like there was another option to not do it, and I'm like, why is there an option? And that's why I went to YouTube and see like, did people pick that up? And I want to see what the result was of picking the other option. And I was like, my
Yeah.
God, it's a bad ending in any way. It's like, I know there's like different endings to her story.
Yeah.
What was it like to, for you to know like, okay, these are the endings for her, with your personal like kind of opinions on how these endings are probably what was your ending, what you
Mhm.
wanted Songbird to end up on.
Well, it's funny that you asked that because, okay, full transparency, because we're hopscotching all the time between timelines and when I was doing the voiceover, it took me a long time to understand where do we end up? Like I was
Yeah,
doing my job, right? So at every point we have to skip around. We're like, okay, we're going back to like, this thing. And like, okay, so you're just on these different timelines. So truthfully, embarrassingly, it took a while, it took a moment, maybe many moments for me to like grasp all the what are the different endings. Because I was like, wait, just didn't. Oh, okay, we're in a different ending. Oh, got it. Wait, why? Like, I had to. Thank you, Pierce, again for being so patient with me. I had a million and one questions because she got confused. But when I was figuring out what the endings were, some of them, like the most awful endings, like I liked, I don't say liked, but like I appreciated the most. Here's the thing. When I do work, like I'm in the moment. Sometimes I black out. I don't remember what I said. There's times where like, we'd get into a new session and I'm listening back on lines I recorded and I would literally forget that I said that. I was like, "Oh, that's my voice." And I was like, y'all didn't AI me, right? Cuz I was like, "Oh, I said that." So again, every time I'm just in the zone doing what I need to do. And I kind of like, there's sometimes you just kind of forget, like a lived experience. Like you just
yeah,
go through life. You don't remember every single thing you did and said to every single person. So I kind of was like that. So when I figured out the different endings, obviously, her getting sent to the moon is it's such a sacrificial move. It's so moving. Um, but when I saw the different endings and I saw the one where she asked, like, that's the one I cried. That sounds so lame that I'm like crying, but hearing Songbird, to me, it wasn't listening to me. It was listening to Songbird and the sound design. Like, oh
oh
my
yeah,
God, gorgeous. I can't keep gushing about it because it was hearing her in that hollow space with her, she's connected and all that clinking. Just it's just gorgeous. Like that stuff is the stuff I live for.
yeah,
All the other people who had their hands in the development, it's chef's kiss, like so good. And so hearing that line that I remember my heart being broken as I'm saying it, but hearing it in the environment, hearing V talk to her, struggle with what to do, I started crying. And like when she goes, then that ending where V decides to like end it, like I cried and I was like, I am happy for her. I don't know. There was something, it's so like, and I love a happy ending, but there's something about, I think she can be free now,
yeah,
like, and you hope if she gets sent to the moon, you like hope, okay, this will, you gotta keep the faith alive kind of feeling, which is also very like that's a great feeling to leave with. But there's something kind of about just knowing all the hell she'd been through. Um, but in real life, I don't know if I would choose that, but like that's the ending that really like stuck with me.
yeah,
I can't say like I liked that ending the best, but it's the one that I think stuck with me the most.
yeah. It's so hard to even choose an ending. I was like, which one even is good? Like, because
There's no good one.
yeah, from my understanding, I was like, maybe sending her to the moon is a good one, I think. So I did
Yeah.
that. I was like, I'm not sure if that's a good one. I feel like
Yeah.
that's a good one. So it's like every ending for me, I felt like was good in some ways, but also heartbreaking. I was like, Jesus Christ, like all of this, the whole journey of Night Song. I was like, oh my god, I
That's
was
just
never.
it just reached in and
Yeah, I
right.
just wrenched it. I was like, "Geez," I was not prepared for it. Is that
Mm.
it was crazy, and even with the player character V,
Mhm.
and his relationship or her relationship with Songbird has been insane. Like him feeling that or her feeling that like kind of guilt and just wanting to help, and it was just insane. And I know you didn't record with Jeremy Lay, or like you didn't get to be there, but what was it like? I know you have Idris Elba as well, you have like Keanu. So what was it like? I know you didn't work, but you probably heard their voice lines. What was it
Yeah.
like listening back and then responding to that? Like what was there like a kind of like a happy moment or something like that? Like, okay, I'm listening to Idris Elba and I'm
Oh my God. Okay, so again, the memory's fuzzy, but I remember the feeling. And I remember distinctly at the top of the game when they're those sneaky, clever, mysterious, loving, what mystery loving folks at CDPR. There's part of me is like, how could you do that to me? But it's also fun that they kept it from me. They didn't tell me about Idris Elba until way later. Like it was multiple sessions in, so I knew that again. There, poor Pierce is repeatedly explaining this story to me because every time I come in, it's like, so what's happening? Like who? Okay, and he just always had to like kind of center me in. Again, I'm so sorry, guys, but I was just so distracted with like everything. I had to kind of like go back and click in when I got into the session. And so I knew Solomon Reed is like this really important character. At the beginning, everyone hasn't recorded yet. We're all starting to record our sessions. So the lines are being fed at the beginning just from the director. He's reading me the line and I'm responding to it. And then slowly, as we're doing more and more sessions, the other people are doing their sessions too. So now we can start hearing. He's like, oh, we actually got Jeremy's lines for these. And she's like, he plays it. And I'm like, oh, this is sick. And then, so again, I knew the character Solomon Reed existed from the jump. Like they explained the storyline. I was like, cool, cool, cool. And it was a few sessions in after we'd like gotten comfortable and I'm like doing my songbird thing. And they're like, hey, we have Solomon's voice. Like, do you want to hear it? And I was like, hell yeah, I do. I've like heard about this guy for so long. And he's like, you might be surprised or like interested to hear who it is. And he's like, I'll just play it for you. And he plays it and like that deep, beautiful, gorgeous, resonant voice just like plays. And I was like, wait, no, like, and I'm pretty good I have a good ear. So I thought, but I was like, I don't,
yeah.
am I dreaming? And then he's like, yep, it's Idris Elba. And I just like had a meltdown. Like, I think I was jumping around in the booth and I'm connected via headphones. So that wasn't the smart thing to do. But yeah, I freaked out. So they kept that from me. And then they like dropped, like as they do, they just like dropped the bomb on me in the session. Like, oh yeah, by the way, your mentor, yeah, Solomon Reed, that's Idris Elba. I'm like
Man.
mad at them, but I'm like so thankful because it was such a fun surprise.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was a crazy surprise to me when the trailer came out. I was like, oh, yeah, Idris Elba is gonna be. I saw like Idris Elba is in this. We had
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves who gave us a heart attack before. What?
Yeah.
So like it was
Yeah.
crazy to me. Like Idris Elba is in the game, and I remember like him saying. I think they had like an after party or something, and I remember him saying about because Solomon, like Idris Elba, was giving like the final speech, and he was like, "Okay, I know about how it goes in movie sets, but this is gonna be new for me." So, and then
Uh-huh.
he said like his old speech about how he was like wonderful and to be in the game. But it was crazy to see.
You was at that. See, okay, my gripe is I'm very sad I was not invited to the any sort of rap party.
I
But see,
have no
this is
idea.
video game world. Like, yeah, I mean, I think they had a party in London. I saw it on
I think
Twitter.
so. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm putting it in the universe. Can we please have a United States version? And can we please? I really just want to meet my co-stars.
Oh
Just
yeah.
saying.
That'd be great. Actually, that'd be awesome to like meet everybody. The people you unfortunately didn't get to see, but meeting all the actors and everyone. That'd be a great moment.
People want everyone. No, I don't know. Like, how? We're in a very unified voice moment in our time. I think it's time to unify our voices and say, we want the cast to meet. They need a group photo.
Yeah. Hey, I would love to see that. To have a good photo and everything. That'd be awesome. You
Yeah.
gotta do it. Come on, what are you
Yeah.
waiting for? Do you have like a memorable moment doing recording or working in this game? A moment that you would always remember?
I think it was really that first day when I found out what I was doing. I'll never forget that. There's a story behind it. And I feel so, I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm gonna make a TikTok about it. I want to figure out a way to share the story, but I'll share a condensed version of it here. And I haven't shared it yet because it's a little bit of a long story. Anyway, um, prior to this all happening, the world, had been shut down, travel opened back up again, and Paris is one of my favorite cities in the whole world. I studied abroad there. Like a lot of my some life changing moments happened there. So I was really happy to be able to go back. A friend unexpectedly crashed my trip. I was going to go by myself and write and brood and be an artist walking the streets of Paris. But she ended up coming with me and completely changed the whole trajectory of that trip. We ended up going places, doing things that I would never have done or planned myself. One of those things was, going someplace at midnight on a Saturday night that I didn't want to go to. I wanted to go to bed, but she's like, no, we got to go. And I, placated her and I said, fine, we'll go. And we arrived there and it's the Sacre-Cœur in Paris and it's a movie set. And I freaked out because then I was excited. I was like, okay, I'm glad we came. And then we were trying to figure out what was going on. And while we were snooping around and being nosy and trying to figure out what movie set we're on, I saw somebody at the back of their figure. And I was like, that looks like Keanu Reeves. And then I was like, no, that's not cute. Like, what would Keanu Reeves be doing in Paris? Like, it's not happening. So I brushed it off. And then a minute later, my friend that's with me turns around. She's like, Minji, this is a set of John Wick 4. And I was like, shut up. Like, I flipped out because it was Keanu. And then I was like, I knew the back of his head. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I just knew.
Yeah.
And that night she took a photo of me at that same place that we saw him. And I made this joke and I said, like, not me looking like, I'm ready to play Keanu's like loudmouth little sister or half sister or something. I said something like that. And I posted it on Instagram. It's still there. And then a few months later, I booked Cyberpunk, not knowing, and I was this close to saying no. And the funny thing is, when I was in the studio and when they showed me, again, I told you, they said, you're in Cyberpunk, went over my head, did not register. I was like, oh, that sounds like a game. I think I've heard of that. Like, that was my general reaction. And then I was like, do I have to record every day? Like, again, went straight to that. Then they're like, do you want to see your character? Hell yeah, I want to see her. That's when I got excited. And then they showed me the video. The video that they showed me of her was Songbird walking. And then all of a sudden she puts her hand on like a dude's like shoulder or face. Like she touches some man. And I said the exact same thing I said in Paris. I said, that looks like Keanu Reeves. And they're like, it is. And I was like, that's when it clicked. That was my moment when like I realized what game I was in. I was like, oh my God, I'm in the Keanu Reeves game that like messed up the internet or something. Like,
Yeah.
because that's when I heard about the whole debacle. So that was an unforgettable moment. And it gave me like full body chills because I had joked about it and I said, I was like, I'm going to play Keanu Reeves, like sidekick or whatever. Are you kidding me? Like, and it was the same exact thing I said in France. You just can't make this stuff up. You can't.
Can't, yeah.
So that's an unforgettable moment. I will never forget it for my rest of my life. And I'm just going to keep saying ridiculous things. This is what is set, another precedent. I will just keep asking for all the most ridiculous. So between you and me, I'm going to be in a Pixar movie. I am going to, I'm going to create a production company that will create some of the best TV shows and films and, content on the planet. It's going to help heal the world. Like, yeah, I'm just going to say all these things all the time.
Hey, that's amazing.
Keanu, okay? Like, I don't know what.
Oh my God. It's a great conversation starter. I feel like, what did you do? Like, I did this. Oh, great. I work with Keanu. I was like,
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, this is casual. I joked about it one day and then it came true. That's all.
Yeah.
To everybody, like I really am a big believer of energy, and it's very kind of you that you said that clip that you mentioned meant so much to you
Yeah.
about, having a friend and for that moment not being alone. That's something that means a lot to me in my life and in my work. And like legit, you saying that means so much. And we need more of that. Like we're clearly, whenever people are going to interact with this video and this podcast at different times, we don't know when they're going to encounter it, but I pretty much can guarantee at any point the world is always going to be in need of people feeling less alone and feeling like
Yeah.
somebody cares about them. So it means a lot that I was able to communicate that. And I just say it out loud because anybody that I can like share a conversation with, whether it's one-sided or not, like I want to encourage everybody. Everybody can do that. Like I had the honor of doing that in this game. And I want that to be like, I want that energy to kind of like keep moving out into the universe,
Yeah.
and like people do that to everybody else. Like we need that. Life is hard. It is crazy. It's challenging. And so we've been going through crazy times. We really need comfort and reassurance from people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, everything you said. I completely believe that. And I'm trying that myself. It's like hard, very hard. But like I completely believe that in you because half of the reason why I talk to voice actors is like, oh, this is somehow a level of comfort to me. Like I get to talk to them. I get to hopefully open them up and talk about a lot of more things and share
Yeah.
the story to the people who love these characters. I feel like that's kind of I take it as my job. I take it like that is I feel like I should be doing. And it's been so
Yeah.
much fun for me and it's been so much great to share their story and share what they believe in. And probably a character has like yours has like this kind of story where maybe they're feeling alone and maybe they are not themselves and the game is able to provide that story and then there's a character that goes around it and says like hey you are not alone and presents a message and I love that
Mhm.
and that's why I love sharing the stories about any voice actor who's been part of these games and is able to act that character and help spread out keep that message out. It's just something that I love and that's what I want to share to everybody because
Aw.
I feel like because I myself I feel like okay I feel like kind of like that lone factor I guess you can say where it's that so I feel like there must be people out there and I feel like I gotta do something a little bit to help it out and I think you
Amazing.
guys you guys are doing just a fabulous job in
Well,
portraying
so are
that
you.
message.
You are like, I applaud, I genuinely applaud you. Yeah, I'm a podcaster. You never know who's listening
Yeah,
and you never know, but like that intention, I think intentions are huge. They're way more valuable and way more powerful than we understand.
yeah,
So that being your intention, like I'm really moved by that. And again, in this world that like I had always kind of kept at an arm's length or just imagined I would never be part of. It's really meaningful to like be really warmly welcomed. I mean, my character has caused apparently there's like division in the community.
oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
people who are not a fan, and I get it, but and also that's gonna drive conversation. I'm like, I'm all for it. That means I did my job. Hopefully it elicited some kind of response. But I also appreciate it. Also, can I say, because as a voice actor and a newbie to the video game world, there were some people, I think it's changing right now. We're in like the midst, and I think you're part of that, of this expansion and appreciation of the voice acting and the humanity or like the layers that actors can bring to it. And I think it's very meaningful because we're in the middle of this strike and like not being replaced by robots and not being, inconsequential to the overall project. I get it from a business side that they're the bottom line and all that, but I think there's a transformation that's happening because there are people, as I was getting my feet into video game voice acting, there's I won't get into the details, but more or less I talked to a lot of different people, just people who play and people who I have lots of actor friends and I have friends that have done huge games and that are very popular and famous. But from what I understood, there's been an emerging interest in the voice actors. I guess
Yeah.
it wasn't always that way. And there are games and there are people out there who didn't feel like the actors are that fundamental or important to the marketing of a game, even like unless you're like a Keanu or Idris, you don't really, it doesn't really matter to promote you. And I get that. Like again, you have your priorities, so I'm not judging, but it's kind of like on the actor side, it's like we want to give our all to something. We want to bring truth and humanity and life to a character. We work on, being ourselves or being the character to do a good job. So I really appreciate all to say, I have really long answers, so thank you for your patience. But all to say, the fact that you create a space for the voice actors to be honored and to like get to know them, it means a lot to me. And I think that it's a really cool thing. And I'm hearing from more and more people that the more story oriented these games are getting, the more these actors become such a like companion and like,
Yeah.
even the villains, like they just become a really interesting component to the game that maybe wasn't as prominent as before, which I think is really cool because
Yeah.
it's really cool. That's all.
Yeah,
So
you're
thank you
right.
for you're doing something really, really wonderful. It means a lot to the actor to feel valued.
No, thank you. It's I don't know how to do that compliment. Like, thank you so much. It's like it's something that I thought would be uh interesting for people to see. And you're right, like the interest of being a voice actor even now, for especially for video games, has grown a lot. And people want to
Yeah.
be a part of it because of the stories like these, and somehow I'm really loving it because people are now respect voice actors, want to know about voice actors. They search voice actors. They want to know who played this. They want to know their stories, what they did, and how they came up there. And there are, I love that fact that there's award ceremonies that happens for games, and there's voice actors get awarded and all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that happens in these video games, just apart from playing games or making games. So much stuff which has grown as because it was acting was like, okay, it's movies and shows or
Yeah.
theater, but now it's games as well. And there's so
Yeah.
much appreciation. That's why I just love the fact that people have now changed kind of their perspectives. Some are also trying to change their perspective, and it's so great because there was a time when I feel like video game acting was taken as like, okay, that's my last resort. If I've come down to
Yeah.
that, nothing happens, okay, I guess I'll do that. But now it's
Yeah.
not that. It's like kind of taken over the, even I would say video game has taken over the entertainment world. So it's that massive. So yeah, I just want to say that it's crazy, and I'm just happy that you are a part of it now. And I'm
Thank
hoping I'm hoping that you get to be in part of some other games in the future.
I would love that, and I can't disclose anything, but there's already some interest from other people that again, I go into every situation with the highest of hopes and no expectations. You
Hmm.
never know what's going to happen, and I think it's kind of also a self-preservation thing in any industry, but especially one of so much rejection
Yeah,
that just got to do the best that you absolutely can and hope for the best and maintain professionalism and still be ambitious, but you really don't know what will like exist, and if it exists, if it will do well. You can have all these hopes and they can be dashed all the time, like
yeah,
constantly. So I was like, okay, this rocket ship has left. It's now in orbit. I don't know what's going to happen to it. I don't
yeah,
know what's going to happen. I'm very like, if this is the only game that I ever do, what a ride. Like, what an honor to even be part of this. I'm not complaining.
yeah.
Like, and if I can do another game, that'd be freaking cool. Like, again, I never thought I'd be this excited to like do another video game, but here we are. And yeah, I'm totally game for that. And I would love to do it, but who knows? Who knows what will happen?
Oh, I
Because there's a lot
am.
of people out there too. So I'm just saying.
I'm actually very excited for you to be part of other games because oh my god, there's so many games and so many good games, so many good stories. And I would say that song has touched so many people's hearts. And I have seen so many people having screenshots of the character from the game and their fan arts and stuff. So
Yes.
what do you want to say? Anything that you want to say to the fans who have been loving this character so far?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the sincerity. And I don't know, there's just so many things that are appropriately, really heartbreaking these days. And life, for a lot of different reasons, for a lot of people, is really hard. I have my moments where I get really down and just I'm a pretty friggin' positive person, and I also say I work hard to stay positive. It takes a lot of effort to keep positive when circumstances kind of feel like it's preventing you from doing that. So it just genuinely means a lot to me, especially given, what I've shared earlier about my apprehension and um I'm just so surprised and like pleasantly surprised, and so I feel the love. I hope the fans who love the game but hate Songbird, I hope you can find it in your heart to have, there may be things about Songbird you don't know yet. So maybe like, but in any case, I think all these games are such an interesting analysis of humanity. I mean, we're all just here trying to like create something interesting and compelling, thought provoking. And I just thank all the fans. Like I can't, it's weird for me to say like, thanks for all the Songbird fans. Like kind of sentence is that like that I get to say? That's an honor. It's really cool. I love it.
That's awesome. And I want to thank you for coming to the show, for talking about everything that you just talked about, the game, your behind the scenes stuff, and amazing Keanu Reeves story. Thank you so much for being a part of
There's
this.
details missing with that, but yeah, I'll tell the full story. Thank you for inviting me. This was so much fun.